These are the Beats Fit Pro, a slimmed down yet more feature-packed follow-up to the Powerbeats Pro. But can it withstand the needs of endurance athletes? It's time to put in the Beats Fit Pro and take them for a run. One hour easy on the bike today at an average heart rate of 138 beats per minute to round out my testing of the Beats Fit Pro, which is a set of earbuds that I've been running with and now cycling with for about the past week. Now, before I give you my thoughts on how these earbuds did and how they compare to some of my other favorites, I do want to go over some disclosures. The earbuds that I'm going to talk about today, all of them were earbuds that I purchased myself. No one sent any of these to me. No one's paying me to make this video or to include any of these earbuds in a video. And no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Beats Fit Pro. First, let's go over some specs. These are active noise canceling earbuds that also have a transparency mode. And something that's unique about them is that they have this wingtip type of design, which is this little piece of like silicone or rubber that's in here that kind of hooks into the folds of your, not into your ear canal, but into the folds of the ear. So instead of using like an ear loop, kind of like the Powerbeats Pro did, instead these use something that kind of wedge and lodge themselves inside some of the folds of your ear, and that's how they stay nice and secure. These earbuds are very lightweight, and overall they're very comfortable to wear for very long periods of time. Now the buttons are the same no matter which side you're using, and a single button press will play pause, double tap will fast forward, and triple tap will rewind, and then a long press will toggle between active noise canceling and transparency mode. Now, why would you want to have something like that? From a runner's perspective, it allows you to hear the things that are going on around you, which can hopefully increase your safety and awareness, even when you're still listening to music out there on the run, or like today when I'm out there on the bike. Inside the earbuds, you have the H1 chip. This makes it for super easy pairing. And if you're in the Apple ecosystem, I have an iPhone, I have an Apple Watch, and I have a MacBook Pro. Like all those things, like the handoff is usually just super smooth. The other thing that the H1 chip now also allows is that these Beats Fit Pro can be detectable using the Find My app. So if you tend to misplace things, like I misplace things all the time, you can use the app to help make them make a noise, and it's kind of like a little very standard iPhone type of ring sound that it gives when it finds them. Problem is, it didn't really work that well for me because I misplace these things like pretty much once a day, and I always tried to use the Find My app, and it just really never seemed to work for me. As far as battery life, they're supposed to have 6 hours of listening time on a charge, with another 18 hours available through the case, so a total of 24 hours of listening time. And there's also a fast charge feature, so like if you're at completely zero, 5 minutes in the case will give you an hour of listening time, which pretty much is all anyone needs. Like for me, that's like my pre-run mobility routine. So like if I completely forgot about them, I could just toss them right back into the case and get them charged up. If the case is completely out of charge, you can then recharge the case itself using USB-C. There's multiple ear tips that are included as well. Not the wing tips. The wing tips you can't adjust really, but like the parts that go in the ear, you can adjust depending on your ear canal size. And the other thing that I really appreciate about these is they have sensors in them, so they can auto detect when they're in your ear and when they're not in your ear. And when they're not in, they'll automatically pause, which I think is just a fantastic feature. All right, let's talk about just the sound itself. I feel like this is a very clean level of sound. I feel like all like the entire register from deep bass to high trebles. I'm able to hear everything really clearly. However, it's not my favorite kind of like sound profile. I like something that's a little bit more bass heavy, something that's got a little bit more gravitas to it. And I just felt like everything was kind of tilted like a little bit high towards a lot of the trebles. And I felt like a lot of like the kind of foundation of the music, I really wasn't quite getting. Overall, I just really wish that there was a lot more bass in these, but that's pretty much a request that I have of almost every single set of earbuds that I ever review. As far as the noise canceling goes, the noise canceling on these is superb. It's probably one of the best noise canceling experiences that I've had in earbuds that are of this size. It shuts out a lot of the world around me, even to the extent that it feels like almost there's like a vacuum seal when it turns on, like when the noise canceling turns on, and it feels like I'm in kind of like an isolation booth. So it works really, really well, almost like freakishly well. The thing that didn't work quite so well for me though was the transparency mode. I would have loved to hear a lot more sound coming in. The one thing that I do think that it did an excellent job of was figuring out what was ambient noise that it could let in and figure out what was wind noise that it should still kind of reject a little bit. So even on very windy days, and we've had some extremely windy days over the last week, I didn't feel like the mics were like amplifying wind noise, which is something that can happen with some kind of inferior or not as good transparency modes and active noise canceling earbuds. All right, now let's talk about how it was to get some exercise in with these. I took these on several runs, and I also took it on the ride for today just to get a feel for it at different kinds of speeds. I actually really do enjoy running in these. The wingtips work really well, and the button presses are very easy to do, so you're not really like jamming your finger into your ear. The buttons are relatively sensitive. If anything, they might be a touch too sensitive because sometimes when I had my winter hat on, if I had a more snug fitting winter hat, depending on how I pulled it down, it might accidentally register a button press. So that's just something to keep an eye out for. But as far as being able to interact with it, even with some winter running mittens on, I was able to do that just fine. The fit in terms of the earbuds staying in was really great. I feel like they're about as secure as an over-the-ear loop design, at least in the way that Beats is implementing it here. I've used other kind of wingtip designs before, and I've always felt like they don't really add much, and I wish that they would kind of just get rid of it to make the earbuds that much lighter. Here, I do feel like they're actually kind of like designed well enough that they actually do sit in the ear without being uncomfortable, but lodging themselves in there so that the earbuds don't feel like they're going to fall off. So I feel like running with them is great, but the same kind of sound problems that I had resurfaced again. So the noise canceling was great, but I don't really turn the noise canceling on while I'm out there running or if I'm on the bike, unless it's very, very windy, and it was very windy on some of those days. So when you turn the noise canceling on, it helps kind of like turn down the noise of all the wind that's around you. And so even though that the noise canceling is really good when you're out there in the running, the more important thing for me is that transparency mode. And here I felt like the transparency mode just wasn't good enough. I felt like because these earbuds do kind of like wedge themselves into your ear a little bit, the transparency mode needs to be stronger. That mix of ambient noise and the noise of the sound level of the music that I'm listening to needs to be adjusted so there's more ambient. Like I still couldn't really hear what people were saying around me. Today on the bike, there was a guy behind me. I was slowing down and kind of looking back behind him to let him know that I was going to be turning soon, or just to check, kind of see where he was. And he was like, he said something to me. I think he said that I'm going the same way. I'm going to be turning too, so don't worry about me. But like I really couldn't tell what he was saying just because like the transparency mode just doesn't work well enough for my tastes. For some of you guys who maybe have better hearing than I do, maybe it's good enough. But for me, I felt like even with my music turned really low, I still wasn't hearing the world around me as well as I would have liked. And then overall, in terms of the sound quality, I felt like there just wasn't enough bass. There wasn't enough kind of like rumble there for me. It felt like, again, everything was geared very much toward the treble and towards the higher notes. And so I heard that really clearly and very crisply, but I don't feel like I got kind of like the fullness of the music that's really there. And I did listen to a lot of familiar music to me just to make sure I knew what I was missing, if anything. All right, now let's switch over to a little bit of a mic test. I'll do a quick sound test using a bunch of different earbuds so you can get a sense of if you wanted to use these for a phone call or for a meeting, what it would sound like. All right, guys, we're gonna do some audio tests. First, I'm gonna talk to you directly into the iPhone 11 Pro, nothing in my ears, nothing connected. So you're gonna get a sense of what the sound is like with some traffic going on behind me and see how the mics do at picking my voice out in the midst of all this noise. Next audio test, we're gonna do the Beats Fit Pro. Get these in here, see how these do at blocking out some of that car noise that's going by, and just overall see how they do in terms of picking up voice and what it would sound like if I were to use these on a video call. Next, we're checking out the Jabra Elite 85T. We've got these in here. It's fortunately a relatively warm day out here in Chicago in December, so I can show you guys the earbuds and not have to wear a winter hat, but hands are definitely getting a little bit cold trying to get this camera going as I'm getting these sound samples in for you. And lastly, we've got the AirPods 3 in now, so again, you get a sense of what they sound like. I've tried to stand in the same spot this time so that I can get a pretty good sense of some consistent road noise, so hopefully no one sound sample is skewed by what traffic may or may not have been around. It's a pretty busy street this time in the morning, rush hour. Everyone's dropping their kids off at school and then trying to get to work. So there you have it, the different sound samples, just to give you a quick sense of what the audio quality is with the mics. Hopefully those sound samples help you out. Now let's talk about some comparisons. All right, first I'm going to compare it to the Powerbeats Pro. Now these are just gigantic if you're just looking at the two cases, and this case, the Powerbeats Pro case, is just so heavy compared to the Beats Fit Pro. If anything, I would say the Beats Fit Pro case now, although it's still a little bit bigger than the Jabra Elite 85T case, weight-wise, I feel like they feel about the same, and I feel like in hand, they kind of like take up the same volume, or like in pocket, they would kind of take up about the same amount of volume. So I'm really impressed with how much they've been able to trim this down. In terms of just the size of the earbuds, again, I'm really happy with how much they've kind of trimmed everything down in terms of the Powerbeats Pro and the over-the-ear loop design, and the Beats Fit Pro and the wingtip kind of in-ear design. I like how much smaller this whole thing is becoming. The major problem that I had with the Powerbeats Pro is that there was problems with like the connectors that I had, at least in mine. So basically I stopped using them because I would put them back in the case to charge and it would look like they were charging, but they would end up just never taking a charge. So every time I reached for them, they were always dead. So that was a problem that I had. I haven't had the Beats Fit Pro long enough to know if that's going to be a problem. That problem for me took about 2 or 3 months, I think, to develop in the Powerbeats Pro. So hit the subscribe button, stay tuned. I'll keep wearing these for a little while longer just to see if that same issue arises. I'm hoping that they've resolved it by now, especially since now like the connector points, at least in terms of the charging points, are in a little bit of a different spot. And there seems to be a much stronger magnet that suctions them into kind of the charging part. So hopefully all those issues are resolved. All right, now let's do some more of the comparisons that I think are really going to matter to people. I'm going to compare against my daily driver, the Jabra Elite 85T, and then also against the also recently announced AirPods 3, and then we'll compare them to the Beats Fit Pro. Now, first, let's talk about sound. I feel like in terms of sound quality, I think that of these three, I think that the Jabra Elite T is the best, and it's the best by, I think, by a lot. I feel like it's got that bass, it's got that rumble, but it also still has all the other layers of the midtones and the highs that are in there to give a really great sense of sound, and that fullness of sound exists whether I'm listening in a quiet room like this here or whether I'm out there on the run. So for me, the Jabra Elite has the best sound. Now, in terms of fit, all three of these have worked really well for me on long runs, on really sweaty runs, and I don't have a problem per se with any of them, but in terms of which one do I think is the most kind of well suited for rigorous physical activity, I think that's definitely going to be the Beats Fit Pro. They fit in the ear really well, and then that wingtip design also functions really well, better than I've seen other wingtip designs before, and it really gets it in there, so it's going to get in and stay in there. And I do think that it has really long-term wear usability, so you're not going to get overly fatigued from having them in. So in terms of fit, I do think that the Beats Fit Pro wins. Let's talk about the transparency mode. For the transparency modes, I mentioned it already, but definitely the Jabra Elite 85T works better for me. I still wish that even for the Jabra Elite 85T that I could bump up the kind of ambient noise even more. Now, the Jabra 85T has an app that you can adjust that mix a little bit, but even when I have that mix pegged for as much ambient sound as I can, I still kind of wish that I could get a little bit more. That's how much I kind of want it. And maybe again, that's my like unique hearing or my degradation of hearing now over the years, but I do wish I could have more. But in terms of all three of these, I do think that the Jabra Elite 85T helps me to be able to hear what's going on around me the best. Now, if I don't want to hear anything that's going around me, if I want to cancel the world out in terms of audio, that's where I go back again to the Beats Fit Pro. That noise canceling is just spectacularly good. So those are kind of like my best in the different categories. So maybe you can decide, depending on which of those things is most important to you, will help you decide between these three options. Now, the last thing to talk about is price. Now, the AirPods 3, I think, are the cheapest of the bunch, at least in terms of a retail price. These come in at $180. The Beats Fit Pro come in at $200. If I'm comparing these two head to head, I'm going to be reaching for the Beats Fit Pro because, one, I don't like the AirPods kind of like how conspicuous they are. And while these are really good earbuds, I do think that they are very well balanced. They're not too high, they're not too low, they're just sound quality. It's right in the middles. It emphasizes everything, I think, very evenly. The sound quality is really good. But I do think that I would probably reach for the Beats Fit Pro instead because I do like the fact that they do have the little wingtips in there and they're not conspicuously bright white. So there's like that part of it too. So I would pick the Beats Fit Pro, pay that extra $20, and you're getting the really good noise canceling and transparency modes as well. Now, when it comes to the Beats Fit Pro against the Jabra Elite 85T, these used to be $230 retail, and even at paying $30 more or $50 more than the AirPods 3, I do think that it's worth it to get the Jabra Elite 85T because I like how that music sounds, and I feel like just a lot of bass. I'm getting a lot of rumble. I feel like I'm getting a lot of fullness. I'm getting all the music that I want to hear, and especially when I've got the music cranked because I got a big workout. That's definitely when I appreciate that fullness of sound that I'm getting with the Jabra Elite 85T. But the other thing to keep in mind is these earbuds have been out for a little while now, and now they're on sale pretty much everywhere, even if you go to the Jabra website. And right now they're on sale for $150. So not only do I think these sound the best of all three, they're currently the cheapest of all three. So if you're asking me which one should you get, unless you're like just super incredibly sweaty and you really needed the ear loop of the Powerbeats Pro, then I would say get the Beats Fit Pro now if you're looking for a new set of earbuds. But otherwise, if you're just like a normal sweater, and these days I think I'm just like I used to be so sweaty, but now these days I just feel like I'm a regular sweater. And so I feel like for most people, I'm going to be recommending the Jabra Elite 85T, especially since it's now just $150. So those are my thoughts on the Beats Fit Pro, plus my thoughts on all the competition. Let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions, or better yet, feel free to stop by the live stream they do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I would love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?